Does it work? Wait. Yeah, okay. Hello YouTube, and welcome to another daily cast. So we will be spectating a high hero game here. Uh, I do believe it is Julian, Bonny, Robie, and maybe Snickles? Not 100% sure, but we're gonna see. And I hope it will be an interesting one for you and for me as well, I guess. So 1, 2, 3. Oh no, Snickles is in a different game. And here we go. We're gonna try inspecting. Okay, we should be back. Yeah, okay, so let's just focus on the game. Uh, and here we go. So, okay, so Oathbreaker on Ruby. We do have False Maiden with Buckler on Tjuvis. We do have Growl on Bonny here, trying to bait the egg, maybe, but doesn't have a egg, so meaning that he possibly doesn't get the snail resent here. He doesn't, so this means it will be fine. Sorry about that. Yeah, so sorry about the stream. I had some upload issue, but the internet's still working, so I don't know what's going on here. All right. So here and the priestess start from Julian. So rough start here for me, but we do have. Wait, what? Okay, the Snell did work here this time against the priestess. That's something I never will understand. That sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. So a little bit unlucky for Julian here. The long wave, and that's what they wanted, I believe, because both Robie and Tjuvis are at 5 worker. Bonny is the only one at 4 workers right now. He does go for the orchid and not the bunk. So I don't. I think it's okay. So the reasoning why I prefer to have the bunk first and then the orchid afterwards is for the following reason: is that you bait the enemy to sand on wave 6 for you. So you're in a way better position. Yes, with the orchid you're better on 5 and 6, but that just means to them, that just says to them, hey, send me on 7. And bunk is not the powerhouse it used to be on wave 7. So I think I just a little bit missed opportunity. Not a missed opportunity, but could have been a bit better. Uh, could have been a bit better for Bonny. All right. So now Bonny be able to push. That is one thing that you can do better with the orchid, is push harder than with a bunk. But you kinda still want the bunk on wave 7. So we're gonna see what it will turn out to be. How it will turn out to be, sorry. 6 workers on Julian, only receiving a DT here, will be fine with the Maiden. Also an 80 onto Robie. He does have the Elite Archer, he does have the Serpent, he does have a decent frontline as well, so should be enough to clear. Yes, it will be. And the Serpent and the Elite Archer will be able to snipe the Brute. What about the Orchid? Still fine, and Julian is fine also with the Priestess. So 7 workers all across the board except from Tjuvis, not receiving a send on wave 4 and not receiving on wave 5 either. He does go for the Radiant Halo here. Very nice choice. It will be able to tank some of the wave. Also will be sniping the boss first. So what he's lacking is a little bit of tanks here. But here with the Hermit, Halo, perfect answer against that. But I just feel like it's lacking a little bit of tank, but I can be mistaken. So yes, it will result into a small leak from Tjuvis, but a big leak from Robie with the 40 resend here from Julian. So yeah, Tjuvis leaking just one Scorpion and the Hermit, or just the Hermit. Yeah, the attack speed boost just at the right time for the Radiant Halo. And so, yes, some king damage despite the good hold from Tjuvis. Tjuvis being able to push to 8 workers because of the Radiant Halo already present. The Maiden already good on 7. So a good setup for 7 and 8. But he does like the tank and the damage for wave 9. So that might be his next step to get maybe a King Claw here to be good later on. Tjuvis going for income at 9 workers, taking the worker lead by a large margin. And here, Julian protecting the priestess, predicting a hard tank mercenary against priestess. But with that, he should be fine. But Dino still very good against everything he has, to be honest. And when you have a steed, you kind of want to have your priestess tanking a bit more. Oh wait, it's not wave 7. I'm just talking nonsense here. It is good frontline that he has with a red mask. So sorry about the wave mix-up. That is perfect then for him. Well, perfect, but the red mask is still dying, and the priestess does have the healing, cannot deal with 3 Rokos at the same time, and 2 Rokos league, still very fine for him going to 9 workers. With the tantrum mask, could go for 10 to put pressure, and go 8. Robie does push to 8 workers after receiving the DT resend here. Bonny stuck at 7 workers because, as we expected, there was no send from Robie, and he long saved to wave 7. Does have the bunk here with the elite archer, so can do good despite what I've said. But the delay on the split is just not that great, honestly. So we'll see how it goes. Luckily, the 2 big sends are right next to each other, so better view for you guys. And let's see. So here, this is a classic Tjuvis positioning. He wants everything, the mask to tank, and then the Halo will be the last to take the damage. It will still result into a leak here because the Halo is not enough damage necessarily against this much damage against it. Bonny will also leak massively to the send of Robie, and that's part of the reason why I prefer Bunk into Orchid, because of the 6 send possibility. But Tjuvis is looking just a little bit here, but perfectly fine against the leak of Bonny here. So sometimes the order of which you do your units can help you do a bit better, because you need to also look towards the eye of the one that's sending to you, right? And you just say, in this position, will I send to myself on that wave? No. And the play from Robie to long save here was not one that most people do, but it could have been an income on wave 5 to go 6 afterwards, would have been the same effect, I believe. But that does put Bonny quite far behind the game. Yes, he has good units for that wave, but he will struggle on wave 9. But same for Tjuvis, and same for Julian as well. The only, well, I'm gonna say everybody in this game will struggle on wave 9, so a big send coming on wave 9 for all the players, I believe. But Robie being down in workers because Julian has been saving for so long on him. But the wave 9 send is coming. But one thing that we need to emphasize is that Bonny, yes, he does not have the value. He does have the tank and the damage though. So he can do very well despite being. Oh no, and wait, Robie, what is Robie doing here? 16. He cannot get 120. Maybe he wanted to get the mole, but yeah, I think his plan was possibly to get a mole, but doesn't get it. So ups for the Cannoneer could still do very well here, because look at the values here. Like under for Bonny, under for Julian. Sure, the tank line is good for Bonny, and the damage is good as well with the Orchid. But is it enough? That is always a question we ask ourselves. But 240 here on Robie from Julian. He did have the Orchid boost as well. He does have a good tantrum going on the Oathbreaker. King Cloud very good here on Tjuvis, and that might help him to hold. And what about Bonny here? Bonny does clear, I believe. It does that win the 1v1? Yes, it does. And so a hold from Bonny, uh, a a small leak from Robie, and a small leak from Tjuvis as well, but a big leak from Julian. And the leadership would not be able to cover that, and so it will result into king damage. Will it be more king damage towards Bonny, and on which side will the king be lower HP? That's the question we need to ask ourselves. All units are pretty low on that side, but the Drake is still very good damage. The Mimic is insane damage to the king, but the Mimic now dies, and so in terms of damage, yes, during that wave, it was in favor of Robie and Tjuvis. They did more damage overall. They did a total of 17% damage, but the other side did do 8%, so did catch back up at KHP. They now have the worker lead as well, so very good for them. And now Julian not pushing that much here, because he knows that he's not the strongest on 10, and he can't possibly lead to a no send here, despite I've been despite full building for that wave. Because yes, he has two handlers. Yes, he has a good magic damage source, good pierce damage source, but they are all very low single target damage on wave 10. Priestess is not in Azeria yet, so no percentage HP damage is done to the boss. And so yes, it will still result into a leak for Julian on wave 10. Not the best situation for Bonny and Julian. And with the worker advantage of Tjuvis and Robie, do they decide to go for income here? No, they do not. What are they aiming for? Okay, so embargo on Julian, embargo on Robie, embargo on Bonny, and embargo on Tjuvis, I presume? That will be a wild party on wave 13, that's for sure. A lot of Pierce on the side of Tjuvis, but the idea behind the build is that the Golem are going the long way around and will attack the masks first. So all what Tjuvis need is in this Arc of Justice. And yeah, embargo for everybody. I mean, there's no one that is exceptionally great on 13. The mask players are probably the one who has the better chance to hold because of the natural of the swift armor of those units. And also it protects the Azuria in the case of Julian. It protects the Arc of Justice on the side of Tjuvis, but the worker advantage being on Tjuvis and Robie's side, they do have the pressure advantage. In terms of value, everybody being very, very far under, Bonny and Julian being the most under. Alright, so are you guys ready for the Fiesta on 13? It's really a race to who is leaking the slowest. It's all about preparation here. Oh, the bunk here from Julian. Afraid of 12. Okay, and now the bunk kinda screws a little bit with Julian. And here are the big sends coming for Robie and Tjuvis. Big tank to protect the wave and let the wave do the damage. Kraken on Julian. Very good. Sorry about that. And oh, it is a dino to push a Kraken to the split. Or will it push the Kraken to the split? I do think the bunk is enough to bring everything up to that point. But yeah, sense on everybody. We do have an interesting. Oh, okay. Wants to counter the orchids here. So going for mole with mass DTs on Julian, but a very low damage. But he knows that if he resists the onslaught of the orchid, he can pretty much clear everything that Robie has. Other side of Bonny going for full auras and small stuff in front to counter the mask. But the halo is the problem here, and there's so much mask that the wave will probably fall before the wave reaches the Arc of Justice. I mean, we have a white main on Julian, the Kraken just killing the Azuria here. Not being dragged to the side of the bunk, that's quite interesting, but yeah, so the delay is higher on Tjuvis and Robie, and so we don't know if they would have leaked, but they do hold long enough to allow them to take the win here against Bonny and Julian. So overall, very nicely played by Tjuvis and Robie, well, by all the players to be honest. Huge saves at the right time here. I would say maybe a slight misplay by Bonny to go for the orchid before the bunk. So it's just the idea of forcing the sand on a wave you have an answer on, a strong answer on. Yes, you have the bunk as an answer, but it's not the powerhouse that it used to be. But if you show an orchid on 6 paired with a bunk, now you have a decent answer for that wave, right? So that's the logic behind it. You can pretty much clear with an orchid support wave 6, but you cannot clear wave 7 with a bunk frontline. So that is the small difference between the two, is what is your best answer and how you can make the opponent force your opponent to send on a wave you have a strong answer on. So that's, I mean, that's not the end of the world, but the long save on Julian to go on wave 9 was the turning point here. Yes, they do put some king damage towards Robie and Tjuvis, but putting pressure on Julian here, not holding that, knowing he's weak on 10, not sending on 10 and still leaking to no send, put Julian so far behind because he cannot push on wave 9 to ascend, because he knows that he cannot hold with his unit wave 10. So there was some options they could have went for. They could have accepted that Julian leaks and go for a push instead, but it wouldn't work with their idea to go for an embargo play on 13. But since Tjuvis and Robie did the same thing, they just perfectly matched and did send on the same weak wave that we spotted on everybody. So yeah, on that, very nicely played by everybody. And on that, I'm gonna say thank you for watching and have a nice one.